The tall, gangly thing?
Hello and welcome. Today I'm joined by Twitch streamer, competitive TFT player, and it's the first half of Ramblinnn Robin. It's Ramblinnn himself. Ramblinnn, how you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
So for anyone who may not be super familiar with who you are, why don't you just go ahead first and tell me a little bit about yourself?
Well, I play a lot of TFT. You might have figured that out by now if you haven't. It's pretty much my main hobby right now. I love TFT. I'm having a great time with it. I stream on Twitch. It's not quite my full-time job yet, but we're working on it. So that's where I like to go with it.
Very nice. Yeah, and set 6 for TFT has been out for about a week now. I'd love to hear just your preliminary thoughts on what you've seen based on the first week.
I'm loving it, honestly, and I'm usually not somebody that's super excited. Like, I'm excited for a set, but the last couple, I love to play on PBE, give it a try, get used to the new set, but this is the first set in a while, and including the half sets, where I really just didn't want to stop playing at all. I'm having a great time with it.
What do you attribute that to? What is it about the set?
I think it's because they put a lot of love and care into the set, and I know they do that with every set, but you can tell they've been taking that feedback from set to set, and they've been putting it all towards this one specifically, and hopefully that carries over to future sets. But when you look at the units, they're all really fun, they're all really exciting, they all have their unique purposes. There's not a unit I feel like I'm upset to see in my shop. I want to play them all if I can. You got the traits, they're really fun. They're not just stats this time. They actually do unique things, unique effects that you've never seen before. Some of them, maybe you have seen before, and that's because they're fan favorites. They brought them back. They brought back the best ones. And then, of course, you've got the main mechanic, the Augments. Adds that variability to every game that you can really look forward to something new every time.
Yeah, how do you think the Augments actually compare to set mechanics we've seen in the past?
Going into Augments, I was pretty optimistic about it because it's the kind of thing, and it reminds me a little bit of Galaxies in the sense that they can always add more, they can always take them away because they're not any one augment that's just has to be there. So they're able to take that feedback that we give them throughout the set and iterate on it. And they've already done that a little bit on PB especially, but there's just so much room for potential with them. And even though not every individual augment is the most exciting, when you add these combinations of 3 together, you can get some really cool stuff going.
Yeah, absolutely. And the set mechanic isn't the only thing that's changed about the set. The tournament or competitive format of the set has changed quite a bit with a little bit more weight on tournaments. They've changed the way snapshots work and the ladder points and all that. How do you feel about the changes to the competitive format?
So I'm not feeling like it's too different from the past. Of course, like you said, there's a little more weight in the tournaments and a little less on the snapshots because there's way less spots up for grabs in terms of qualifying for regionals. But you still get that relevance of playing well on ladder and qualifying for the tournaments because you're giving buys to players this time. So you don't have to muddle your way through the first couple days if you feel like it's going to be a waste of time for the top players. And it's cool to give everybody a chance to qualify, but a lot of these players are going to make it through almost always. So I'm a fan of it personally. I'm not quite a fan of how fast this first tourney is coming up because that's asking a lot of, honestly, of the set to assume that's going to be that good. And thankfully it is. It's one of the better releases to a set, but it's still asking a lot of the players as well. I might not necessarily be able to grind it that much the first week and get really comfortable with it, but I'm still looking forward to it.
Now, you've obviously been a part of the competitive scene for a while. Set 5, Set 5.5, you just missed out on regionals. But back in Set 4, you were right there. I mean, you were 5th place at the Fates regional qualifier, just barely missing out on Worlds by 1 point. So I have to ask, looking to the future, I mean, what would it actually mean to you to qualify for Worlds in Set 6?
Honestly, when you look back at Fates, and this is a couple sets now, ago now, but it sucks to be that close and not make it, but I had just started playing TFT seriously at that point, so I was disappointed, but I was also really proud of myself for making it that close and that far. And when I went back and I looked, and I knew at the time, I knew immediately what I could have done better, so maybe they didn't work out so much in Set 5 for me, but now that we're looking ahead in Set 6, it's not so much about making it to Worlds as it is just doing my best, and at least starting with regionals, and then with TFT being such a game of variance, you can't guarantee you're going to make anything. So as long as I make it close again, I'll feel pretty satisfied, honestly.
I feel like this is kind of a curveball, I guess, a little bit, but I've heard people talk about in a game like TFT, you can't always look at the results. You have to look at the decisions you make and kind of make a judgment based on that. And it kind of sounds like that's what you're saying for Worlds qualification. It's not necessarily about making it to Worlds as much as it is playing your best. Would you say that that's like an important outlook that you need to have in TFT?
Yeah, and I can't say that I really thought about it too much when I first started playing the game. You go into it expecting it to be, you expect it to be pretty random, but you always want to think you have a certain level of control over your performance, and you do, to an extent. You really can play your best, and the best player is going to come on top more often than not. But ultimately, there's only so much you can do. In some games, just it's not in the cards for you.
Now, you mentioned it before, but the Piltover Cup, it's the first tournament of Set 6 coming up. I believe it's this weekend. I know qualification ends today. But what are your thoughts and expectations for this event?
Like I said, I'm a little disappointed that it's so early in the set, but also excited to be playing in a tourney this early in a set that I am enjoying. It's slotted to qualify right now. Hopefully, stay in the top 32, get that bye. I mean, I don't think it's so much about getting a certain placement as, again, just doing well, because there's no winning this tournament. It's going to be split up into different lobbies at the end. So I guess you could maybe look at whoever gets the most points in the last day, but it's going to be practice more than anything else. As long as I do play competitively, I'll be happy.
Do you feel like it's actually pretty important to end up in the top 32 for ladder?
Yeah, I mean, talking about this tourney specifically, I think it really helps because the more days you have to play, the more qualification you have to go through to get to the finals. It's just more risk. Even if you're playing against necessarily worse players, they can still beat you. Anybody can beat you on a given day, in a given game, with the right roles and the worst roles for you. And being able to take out that little bit of risk factor really helps. And then just having the opportunity to watch other players play on those first couple of days and see what's the meta is like and what's popular and what's working, what's not, and then having that extra day or two to go in and practice for yourself. It's a step up for sure.
Now, we've said it a couple times. You've been playing TFT for quite a bit now, but it does feel like in the last couple months your popularity has grown a lot. What do you attribute that to?
I think it's a lot of luck, honestly. It's a little bit of luck and a little bit of consistency. I am fortunate enough to have made friends with a lot of the other top players of the community, and that's partially from my own doing. Just being up on the ladder, people take notice of you and they give you a shot. They say, hey, this guy knows what he's doing, maybe I should check him out. But specifically for me, being good friends with Rob and being his duo partner, that gives me a lot of opportunity, not because I'm trying to do this, but it's free advertisement for me, just hanging out in Robin's chat, playing games with him. People say, well, Ramblinn's doing pretty well, I'm going to go check him out next time he's streaming, and Robin's not. And when other players like that, other big streamers like that give me that opportunity, I'm really appreciative of it.
Now, bouncing off of that, you and Robin, obviously, seems like good friends. You guys hang out and chat, etc. But also duos partners, right? And going back to Set 5, you guys competed in the Giant Slayer Series Duos Tournament, where you guys won the group stage and the final stage. It really did seem like you guys were just by far the best duos team in the tournament. How does skill expression in doubles compare to skill expression in singles?
So we're going back now to before we had actual duos, and we've played some duos on PvE. That's a different story. But looking at the original duos, where you have that risk of possibly fighting each other, it actually adds a little bit of skill expression between you two, because you're trying to minimize damage you do to another player, and that means a lot of things. It means not contesting each other for one. You don't want to play the same comp, take each other's units, take each other's items. If you're both looking for those AP items, the tiers and the rods are going to be a little harder to come by. But also playing stuff that doesn't hurt each other too much. And that's usually going to come down to things like being on the right side. You don't want to put my Vel'Koz into his entire team if I'm much stronger than him. And then even little stuff like waiting to slam your items to see if you do fight your partner. That can make a difference. If I go up against Robin, I have a Shroud ready to go, but I think I'm much stronger. I'm just going to hold it. I don't want to hurt him too much, especially if he's much lower HP than me. So you can definitely express yourself in that way, but ultimately it just comes down to having somebody to bounce ideas off of and work together. It's like you're both playing the game together. I'm playing my board with Robin's help, and Robin's playing his board with my help. And ultimately, that's where the expression is going to come in.
Now, you mentioned it before, but the double up mode, the new duos mode that is actually here is on PvE. Are you planning on playing it when it goes to live? And did you play it at all on PvE?
Yeah, me and Robin gave it a shot on PvE. It's unfortunate, honestly, that it came out so late on the PvE cycle before the actual set came out. But I'd love to play it more, and I'm looking forward to playing it when it does come to live. Robin and I had a great time playing with it so far, and wasn't the most competitive lobbies because it has a fresh MMR to go through, a fresh ladder, and there was no queuing up as 8-mans yet. But everything that I experienced about it, honestly, I had a great time with, even more than I was expecting. And I've been asking for actual doubles for a long time. So to see it come through and be even better than I expected, it's awesome. I can't wait to play it.
I know a lot of people, when they were originally reading the description of Double Up, they got to the part where it said that the remaining units of a fight would teleport onto the teammate's board and then reinforce their fight. I didn't actually get a chance to play it on PvE, but I know that sounds like an insane mechanic. What was it actually like in practice?
It's overwhelming, honestly. You're not ready for it the first time you see it. Because you go and you 6-0 somebody and you send your entire army over the other board, and it's something you've never seen before. It's just chaos. And I think it's awesome, honestly. I wasn't really too sure about it going into it, but in practice, it makes for some really hype moments and some really clutch plays.
Do you think that there's actually a level of competitive viability for double up mode?
I think so, yeah, long term. If they give it the treatment and care that it deserves, I think so. It adds another layer of skill expression, even different from the doubles we were talking about before, because this time you can't fight each other, and there's extra mechanics in place where you can help each other out. So I think if they keep iterating on it, it has a lot of potential. Maybe not this first go around, because it's not going to be around permanently initially, but once it comes back with a little bit of feedback from the players, I think it can go places for sure.
Very nice. Now, the next section of this video is actually open to Twitter questions. So we've got 2 questions for you. The first coming from @TrajanTFT, who asks, how do you manage your work-life balance? Do you have a balanced approach, or do you work to the bone and then take breaks?
So I'm someone fortunate enough right now, and this might not be fortunate for everyone, but fortunate for me, the position I'm in is I'm not currently working. I just finished up with school, and have the leisure to take a little bit and see what I can do with streaming and gaming and TFT specifically. So I don't have to balance it specifically with work right now, but just balancing it with general, real life responsibilities, self-care, that's still important. And that's what I've come to learn from Grinding Ladder is if you go and you look at my number of games played so far this set compared to almost every other player that's high up on the ladder, I'm almost certainly the lowest. And that's awesome that I'm performing so well, but I think that also helps me is to pace myself, to not slam games constantly, especially when I'm not doing well and having a bad day. Take a break. That's okay. Slow yourself down and come back with a clear mind. And that really helps me, honestly. Just play a few games each day, have some good games, stop there. Stop while you're ahead. I think that's really key.
Now, the next question comes from Kana @LaurenWu, who says, you're one of the earliest to figure out the meta and stay current with changes. Aside from spamming games, how do you look at a set and figure out what can be a strong composition?
There are definitely players out there that can do that. They can look at a set without having played it a single time. They can theory craft and come up with comps. And there's definitely benefit to doing that. You can get something out of that, but I'm not someone that prefers to waste my time on that. And it's not wasting for everyone, of course, wasting for me, I feel like, because I am someone that learns really intuitively just by hands-on playing with it. And you said, don't slam games, but I think that's really what it comes down to is you got to get in there and you got to put in the reps. And I think it's important to try everything at least once, because if you haven't tried everything, you don't know what can work together and what doesn't. So it's not just about slamming games as much as it is getting that initial barrier of entry down so you know what you're working with. And then maybe you can sit down and you can think about it then. Then you start putting the pieces together and you start asking others for their own thoughts, their experience, and you can combine all that experience together and you can come up with something special. That's honestly something even I could do a better job of, is asking other players for their perspective. And as much as I watch streams, I think that's something that everyone can benefit from, is actually sitting down and discussing and getting those outside perspectives that you haven't considered before.
Yeah, definitely. I kind of want to dig a little deeper into that real quick. I know over the last couple of months, I've talked to a bunch of different players. I've talked to players like Robin, who has said that he just wants to play an infinite number of games because there are an unlimited number of situations that you may only come across one in every 500 games. And then I talked to players like Salvi, who said the more he plays, he actually feels the less he learns. And he said he spends way more time thinking about the game and watching streams than he does actually playing. Where do you feel you fall on this spectrum? It kind of sounds like you're a little bit balanced between playing games and being mindful about the game.
I think there's definitely diminishing returns on the number of games you played. At a certain point, you've kind of set in your preferences, and you're not going to break those preferences without specifically trying to train them to be something else. So unless you're going in with the mentality that I'm going to try something I perceive to be wrong, you're probably going to stick to what you know that you're comfortable with. So at a certain point, you really do have to look for other players' gameplay and see what they're doing differently, because you're going to establish your own tendencies that you can't break.
Makes sense. Yeah, I love that. Now, Ramblinnn, that's actually everything that I have for you. Before we go, is there anything you would want to shout out?
Not specifically, but I'm really just thankful for the entire TFT community at this point. I've made a lot of great friends. I'm having a great time being a streamer. I'm having a great time being a player. Really thankful to Mort for everything he's done for the game, everything he's done for the community. And really looking forward to where TFT is going from here. I think big things are coming with Set 6.
Love to hear it. And hey, good luck at the Piltover Cup. I'm assuming that is this weekend, right? I'm not wrong in saying that. Yeah, good luck this weekend then, Piltover Cup. Hope you do well. And for everyone watching, thank you guys for watching all the way through this interview. If you want to have your questions featured in the next interview, make sure to follow me on Twitter so that you know who the next interview is going to be. For more TFT coverage, content, and guides, make sure you guys subscribe, and I'll see you next time.